United Nations Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, Francesca Albanese. Welcome to you. Thank you very much for coming in today. First of all, your reaction to the ICC's statement that they now believe that Netanyahu and Gallant are potentially guilty of war crimes.
First of all, thank you for having me, Piers. I'm appreciated, especially at such a delicate.
Morgan already made it very, very clear that he doesn't believe that Netanyahu is a war criminal. They believe, ICC believe, not me. I don't think so. In fact, I believe they're saints. They're good people. They're just defending their own country. So from the get-go, you see this bias, this moron is already taking a side.
Moment. How do I see these ICC arrest warrants against Netanyahu, Gallant, and Dave as necessary, as timely, as long due? Because again, I might criticize the delay the court took in fully getting into the investigation of the situation in the occupied Palestinian territory, which has been pending since 2014. And I might also criticize the fact that there is no investigation over the colonies, which are a war crime, and there are 300 colonies in the West Bank. But even if we look at the narrow scope that investigation take, the evidence out there is overwhelming. The facts that 45,000 people have been killed, starvation has been used as a tool of war, and it cannot be justified by any possible circumstance. But however, Netanyahu and Gallant have received arrest warrants for both war crimes and crimes against humanity, meaning that the court has identified the attacks against the civilian population as systemic and widespread. So it's not just violations of the rule of war, it's attacks against the civilian population as such.
So I just want to make a quick point here. Every time Piers Morgan will say, I have seen videos where babies were beheaded, or I have seen GoPro cameras mounted on their heads, Hamas members recording their atrocities. I have seen those things. So they are horrible, horrible people. That's what he will claim. On the same token, Yoav Gallant, that monster, he publicly, those GoPro videos that he saw, I don't know where he saw it. I didn't see one, but that's what he claims. When Yoav Gallant, he came on camera, right in front of camera, he said, we need to cut off electricity, fuel, food for the people of Gaza and starve them to death. That is something we have all seen. Every single citizen of the earth, we have seen that, Yoav Gallant saying that. Still, Piers Morgan doesn't want to call him a terrorist. He doesn't want to call this Gaza atrocity as genocide. But he wants to call something he saw on a GoPro as criminal, as terrorism, and this and that, and beheading and all. This is the standard. This is the level of lies that he utters.
The United States and Israel do not recognize the International Criminal Court. How meaningful is this?
It's very meaningful because, first of all, there is an obligation to prevent war crimes, crimes against humanity, and a crime as serious as genocide. But also there are state parties to the Rome Statute. All Western countries except, the United States and the rest of the global South. So this is going to be binding on so many states, and which means that, first of all, the obligations is on Israeli authorities, even if they are not parties to the Rome Statute. It would be good for the Israeli authorities to hand over Netanyahu and Gallant to the ICC.
But that's unlikely to happen.
If they travel to any country which is a state party to the Rome Statute, they will have to be arrested.
Yes, but your suggestion that maybe Israel itself might turn them over, that's not going to happen, is it?
Look, if they had nothing to fear, they would stand justice. They would just defend themselves in front of the International Criminal Court, which is the highest judicial organ when it comes to international crimes. What they have to fear, if they did nothing wrong, well, the court will assess them.
You said that the UN should consider suspending Israel as a member state during its continuing, as you put it, genocide against the Palestinians, saying that no other country has defied so many UN resolutions for so long. What is the mood at the UN? Is there any likelihood that that could happen?
Well, the likelihood depends on a number of factors, including the political will, because international law is as strong and as effective as the political will of member states to enforce it. But again, the question is, while no member state is completely, in full compliance with international law, no other state as Israel has violated international law and violated the inviolability of the UN as Israel, which has accused every organ and entity of the United Nations, like the Secretary General, the ICC, the General Assembly, the Human Rights Council, members of the Security Council, UN organizations, of being anti-Semitic, to support terrorism and other insults. And it also, Israel this year alone has killed 240 UN staff members. It has fired UN peacekeepers. It has destroyed 70% of UN premises, including clinics, including schools in Gaza alone. This is unprecedented, and it shouldn't be condoned because it might be seen as a precedent for other catastrophic situations. So this is why it's about time to draw a red line.
I do believe, just want to make one point, I do believe that UN is worthless. They serve no purpose. They are not doing any good to humanity. But regardless of what they are going through right now, I do still believe that if they do exist in the future, they should not be in New York. They should not be in the United States, who does not care about what UN has to say, especially when it comes to Israel, especially when it comes to ceasefire in Gaza. Why would you have this organization in that country that doesn't respect its members and their opinion and their judgment?
December the 28th, 2023, tweeted, what Israel is doing to the Palestinians, especially in Gaza, is, quote, the monstrosity of our century. But 2 months before that, October the 7th, on the day of the terror attack by Hamas, you tweeted, today's violence must be put in context. Almost 6 decades of hostile military rule over an entire civilian population, incomprehensibly ignored by too many official statements and media outlets, are in themselves an aggression and the recipe for more insecurity for all. People took that to be almost a justification for what Hamas did that day.
Yeah, they were wrong. They were wrong, and they were very simplistic, because there is nothing about justifying crimes. I've said it and I've been adamant. Civilians must be protected under all circumstances. Doesn't matter their nationality or their ethnicity, what they've done before, if they've been soldiers or combatants. Civilians must be protected from attacks, injury, killing, taking hostages, kidnapping. So I've condemned Hamas attacks to the extent...
Was it a terrorist attack?
Spreading terror is a method in situation of armed conflict. So, we could qualify it as terrorism. The discomfort I have in using the terrorism framework is that it doesn't exist in international law. There is no definition of what constitutes terrorism under international law that is agreed among member states. So this is why I am uncomfortable. Other than that, yes, let's call it terrorism. But the fact that we qualify this as terrorism doesn't justify what Israel has done as of October the 9th. You see what I mean? So
he doesn't see what you mean. What he wants is he's framing her, Francesca, to condemn Hamas. That's what Piers Morgan so desperately wants. Any guest in his show, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? So he is grooming her to say that word. Yes, I do condemn Hamas.
That point. So this is where I would question you. You say October the 9th. So you think it was wrong that 2 days after this, Israel launched an attack back at the people who perpetrated an appalling terrorist attack, which killed 1,200 people. It wounded nearly 7,000 more. One of the worst terror attacks of modern times. What else was Israel supposed to do on October the 9th? Sit there and wait for another attack?
Okay, can I unpack it? But you give me a couple of minutes because it's quite a sensitive point, but I appreciate the question. So the day Israel was attacked, it had all the rights to defend itself, to protect its citizens, its territory, and therefore to repel the attack with all necessary and proportional measures, which means using force, including lethal force, arresting, detaining all persons involved and found on its territory, which happened between the 7th, 8th, and the 9th of October. Some, including Israeli sources, accused Israel of having used excessive use of force, but this is beyond the point. The point is that Israel didn't have the right to wage a war against the Palestinians in Gaza. It didn't, Piers.
It didn't? Well, hang on.
No,
again, I have a question on that. Israel absolutely had a right to go after the terrorists who committed this, surely. I mean, if you have a 3,000 terrorists pouring over your border, murdering in a most brutal manner women, children, innocent civilians, all the things you've said that they've been doing to Palestinians, and we'll come to that. But I'm just interested about your mindset in the aftermath of October the 7th. Absolutely, Israel had a right to go after Hamas, surely.
Pierce, I would be very careful.
It doesn't stop at the borders, does it?
Pierce, I would be
Okay, so why we don't arrest this moron, this terrorist? Why don't we arrest this guy, this moron? I don't know. ICC must issue arrest warrant all the members in Biden administration, including this guy, who is peddling this false narrative, who is promoting terrorism, who is giving misinformation, who is also providing disinformation. This guy alone has done so much damage to the people of Palestine. This is unfathomable. And also gave platform to those Zionist terrorists in his show. So it is time for us to arrest Piers Morgan. Issue arrest warrant. Get rid of him. Cancel his shows, guys. If you're a Muslim, don't go to his show, because this guy is just going to be pathetic, and he's going to lie, and he's going to only promote the Zionist terrorism causes.
Very careful, because mutatis mutandis, this eye for an eye logic would justify what has happened on October 7. And I totally refuse to go there, because if we take your argument that the violence suffered by the Israelis on October 7 justifies what has been happening as October 9, this might lead to justify what has happened.
What did they do? Well, hang on. What did they do on October the 9th?
So repelling the attack and trying to get the hostages back. Waging a war was neither proportionate.
How do you get them back?
Negotiating.
With Hamas?
Excuse me, what has been doing?
Okay, so again, this guy is so lunatic. This guy is such a moron, Piers Morgan. They negotiate with Hezbollah. Just yesterday, they reached a ceasefire deal with Hezbollah. They label Hezbollah as a terrorist organization. They label Hamas as a terrorist organization. Why they then go and negotiate with one party and not the other? Why they don't negotiate with Hamas? Well, you know why? Because Hamas is weaker in the sense that they do not have those rockets that Hezbollah has. So these Zionists and Piers Morgan, according to this moron, they want to target the softer one, the weaker one, and they will choose to negotiate with the tough one, the tougher one, the tough man out there. This is beyond pathetic. This guy said, oh, no negotiation with Hamas, then why do you negotiate with Hezbollah? Oh my God.
What Israel has been doing is to trying to get the hostages back, both through negotiation and killing civilians.
How
let me turn the question back to you.
If you didn't actually go out,
45,000 people killed later. 155 people either killed, maimed, the entire, or 2 million people starving and traumatized. How has this liberated the hostages? Do we realize how dehumanizing this is?
That's a different point, and I don't disagree with you. And I also think the proportionate response of Israel has gone way beyond what I think is acceptable, just to be clear. But we're going to come to that, because that's now that's many months later, so over a year later. I'm just curious about your mindset about what you think they had a right to do, because the International Criminal Court hasn't come after Netanyahu and Gallant for attacking Hamas in Gaza. They've gone after them, but they haven't said that that was wrong. They haven't said that actually attacking Hamas in Gaza was a crime. They've said that the crime is starvation and other issues surrounding this. In other words, what Israel would call the collateral damage. I don't agree it's collateral damage. I think it's moved into something far worse. But just to be clear, if the ICC thought they didn't have a right to do it, why have they not charged them with that crime, as you see it?
And this goes back to the question I raised at the very beginning. When you asked me what was my reaction to these arrest warrants, I've criticized since the beginning the narrow focus that the prosecutor chose. The court has simply responded on the basis of the arrest warrants demanded by the prosecutor. So the prosecutor, for example, chose the extermination only in connection with starvation. And I don't agree with you with the fact that the ICC has only chosen to focus on, given war crimes like starvation, and also there is the crime against humanity of murder and the crimes against humanity of persecution.
Yes, but what they haven't done.
They have.
Just a second.
Let me say this, please.
Okay.
The court has also said, and this is incredible, has said that Israel is creating the conditions of life that might lead to the concept of destruction of the people, which is calculated to bring about destruction of the people. This is the language that already resonates with genocide.
I hear you. And they're very serious allegations.
Serious allegation. But Piers Morgan, for him, Yoav Gallant and Netanyahu, they were not charged with anything in regards to their action against Hamas. It was for Piers Morgan, it was all right for Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant to go after Hamas's members. And for him, it is also, because they had to go after Hamas, it is also okay that they killed so many people. So ICC is making a big mistake. That's what Piers Morgan is trying to say, that this arrest warrant should not have been issued because Yoav Gallant, this monster, and Netanyahu, the other monster, went after Hamas, not after civilian. And the other thing he's always trying to peddle here is this one. He calls the Israeli response far worse. He calls them, the other term he uses is disproportionate. But then he doesn't want to call this 44, 45, 50,000 people who got murdered a genocide. So these are disproportionate response. These are far worse response. But then no, I'm not even calling it a genocide. I mean, in his dictionary, maybe he means genocide means killing 8 billion, all of us.
Completely agree with you. And there's a lot to be said for them. We're going to debate that later. But I come back to the point that on October the 9th, I believe absolutely Israel had the right to go after Hamas past their own border because Hamas had gone back into Gaza. The people who perpetrated the terror attack, thousands of them, came in, did it, and then went back, including 250 hostages. Absolutely, Israel had the right to do that. And the ICC hasn't said they didn't have the right to do that. So it's interesting to me that you're on the UN.
The ICC doesn't judge this.
But you seem to think, I mean, look, I wouldn't accuse you of being naive. However, the idea that they could have brought Hamas to the negotiating table over the hostages without going after them in a very aggressive manner in the way that they did in the first few months. The idea that Hamas would just be having cozy meetings in Qatar and would just say, here you go, that's for the birds.
Piers, let's move forward because we're stuck.
That's for the birds. What about now with Hezbollah? Why you sit with them? Why you have no problem talking to them right now? They are birds and the ITF is a bird? Oh my God, Piers Morgan, this double standard, like he's again humiliating, he's just exposing himself.
Now, 14 months later, let me tell you, first of all, let's go back to the 9th of October. What has happened in the first weeks after the 9th of October, Israel has killed 250 Palestinians per day. From the beginning, 70% of those killed have been women and children. Israel has used in few weeks artillery and weapons amounting to 2 nuclear bombs in an area of 350 or 360 square kilometers, hosting 2.3 million people, half of whom are children, under 18. So 250 people a day. Let's assume, look, I even want to give you the chance to argue that Israel had the right to
it's an important point.
Then it has violated the rules of war because it has caused disproportionate, unnecessary, and deliberate damage to the civilian population to the point.
But that's a different argument, Francesca. It's a different argument.
No, it's not. It's not different. It's an additional argument because again.
Well, no, your argument is they could only defend themselves.
From a legal point of view, the International Court of Justice has said in 2004 and in 2004 and in 2024 that Israel didn't have the right to defend itself. This is not a right that can be invoked under Article 51. So you and I Why are no one in the face of the ICJ saying that? Full stop.
Okay.
So, but again, he's going to be rewriting ICJ and ICC. I mean, this is what Piers Morgan is. Yeah, no, I know what ICC is, and I know that this arrest warrant against Netanyahu and Gallant is unfair. This is outrageous, as Biden said, the puppet. But, guys, at the end of the day, we all know what they have done, the crime they have committed. But again, for this right-wing extremist people like Piers Morgan, Rubin, sitting in the States, many other members in the administration of Biden, they have absolutely no sense of morality, humanity, and all of these people, Megyn Kelly, all of these people should be locked up in jail for good, because they are not good for worlds. They're not good for anybody. They are monsters. They're bloodthirsty monsters, people. And then the next thing you know is they're waging war, one nation after another. They're killing one group of people and moving on to the next one.